He was convicted of raping, speaking out, telling journalist Yashar Ali that the video was incredibly insulting and hurtful, and adding, "My hope is that they learn radical accountability and the importance of self-education to learn when to keep their privilege in check, especially Ashton, who claims to work with victims of sex crimes." And as to Mila, I can only think of time's up. You also had a bunch of celebrities weighing in on this whole situation. People like Christina Ricci not mentioning anyone's names directly, but writing. So sometimes people we have loved and admired do horrible things. They might not do these things to us, and we only know who they were to us, but that doesn't mean they didn't do the horrible things, and to discredit the abused is a crime. People we know as awesome guys can be predators and abusers. It's tough to accept, but we have to. If we say we support victims, women, children, men, boys, then we must be able to take this stance. And saying that she herself has known awesome guys who have proven to be abusers and has had personal experience with this. And saying that is why it is so important to believe victims, because it's not easy to come forward or to get a conviction. You also had Kathy Griffin echoing some of that in a TikTok saying,
"I don't really care that when they were working on that 70s show, he was like a good guy to work with. And he worked actively to keep people off drugs because he's a Scientologist. And by the way, those freaks need to go down as well. My brother, who's now dead, his name was Ken Griffin, was a pedophile. And I tried to get him caught. Now, this was my brother. So I don't want to hear about Ashton and Mila and Giovanni Ribisi and people that feel like they had to stick up for Danny Masterson because he was their bro, he was their buddy. This was my own brother."
And so the situation has just continued to grow and grow, with more criticism and backlash coming in, especially against Ashton. With Chrissy Bixler, Danny's ex, who's one of the women who accused him but didn't get a conviction, calling Ashton out, posting a cryptic message on Instagram saying she knows the secrets that Danny kept for him. They're saying that she was present when Ashton called Danny in February of 2001 and heard the plan, with many noting she seemed to be referencing the day a woman Ashton had been dating was murdered by a serial killer. With an important note there being that a man has already been convicted and sentenced over that crime. And Ashton actually had to testify at the trial because he was supposed to see her the night that she was killed. But reportedly, after she didn't answer the door, he peered at the window and saw what he thought was spilled wine and later left. And so that's why with this new situation, you had people thinking Chrissy was trying to suggest Ashton killed the woman by bringing up this secret and plan, though others saying Chrissy wasn't trying to accuse him of murder, but rather suggest, quote, that he walked into the crime scene and saw the dead body, called his team and Danny Masterson, and they told him not to report it. But there, it is very important to note that this is all speculation, right? People trying to read in between a lot of lines. There are no real verified claims about Ashton's action that night. He was never been accused of anything related to that. And like I said, a man is already behind bars. But of course, unsurprisingly, with the attention this whole situation has gotten, Chrissy's post went viral, with that then leading to a lot of other stuff getting resurfaced, right? Tons of old clips of Ashton resurfacing, going viral as well, including one from Punk'd where Ashton at the age of 25 was talking about 15-year-old Hillary Duff.
Hillary Duff is in Liz McGuire. She also has an album out. She's going to be in a movie called Cheaper by the Dozen. And she's one of the girls that we're all waiting for to turn 18, along with the Olsen twins.
Others also bringing up things and old interviews he did with Mila, saying that at the very least it's uncomfortable given how young she was when the show started. But again, this is still a developing situation. There are a lot of big reactions happening. And so with that, I gotta pass a question off to you. What are your thoughts regarding the whole Mila Kunis, Ashton Kutcher part of this story? And then, this Vice News situation is so disappointing and disgusting. If you happen to be paying attention to Vice News' YouTube channel back in June, you may have caught a 9-minute documentary video they put out about Mohammed Bonesaw. It was titled Inside Saudi Crown Prince's Ruthless Quest for Power. But then, 4 days later, it magically disappeared, with it being set to private after being viewed more than 750,000 times. So that was kind of weird, but they're going through a lot of stuff. Maybe someone, they clicked the wrong button. Except, it wasn't an isolated incident. Not long before that, freelance writers did a story for Vice about how the Saudi state is helping families to harass and threaten transgender Saudis based overseas. And there, despite getting a good reception from the outlet's editors, they say it was repeatedly postponed and then canceled, with multiple sources telling The Guardian that both stories were pulled because senior Vice management feared for the safety of its staff in Saudi Arabia. But, very key thing, others instead pointed to a partnership deal that it struck back in January with the MBC Group, a Saudi state-owned media company, to establish a joint venture in the kingdom. And with that, saying that as Vice has struggled to make money in recent years, it has accepted Saudi blood money and adjusted its coverage of the country as a consequence. And the outlet's relationship with the monarchy reportedly began back in 2017, with MBS's younger brother setting up a meeting between Vice's co-founder Shane Smith and the Crown Prince. And by 2018, Vice had received millions of dollars through the Saudi Research and Media Group to produce promotional videos for the kingdom. But then, when MBS chopped up Jamal Khashoggi that same year, Vice paused all work in the kingdom. Though that apparently didn't last that long, because by the time the pandemic began, Vice was helping to organize a Saudi music festival subsidized by the Saudi government. And if you didn't know about that, it's not your fault, because for some reason it was so surprising the outlet's name was absent from the publicity materials. And this as contractors working on the event were reportedly presented with non-disclosure agreements. Then, further showing the change in the relationship, in 2021, Vice opened an office in the Saudi capital of Riyadh, where it was once banned from filming in 2018. And last year, Vice's former president of news acknowledged to staff in a conference call that the Saudi regime, quote, had committed atrocities and done all sorts of terrible things, but then added, "We have opened an office, we're staying there, we're committed to our presence in the region." If that's a step too far for you as a human being on a personal level, then okay, go with God. No one is forcing you to work here. With all of that bringing us to this year's partnership deal and the stories getting shelved. Also, in response to those stories getting shelved, the Vice Union put out a statement last month saying, "We are horrified, but not shocked," adding, "We know the company is financially bankrupt, but it shouldn't be morally bankrupt too." Yet, after the outlet's bankruptcy back in May and its acquisition by new investors in July, it only appears to be expanding its presence in Saudi Arabia with numerous job listings for its Riyadh office. And all of this is part of a reported larger strategy shift away from news and toward lifestyle and entertainment content. And then, if you are like an increasing number of people in America right now, you are having bathroom problems. In fact, Americans are so constipated, more constipated than ever, it has caused a nationwide shortage of laxatives. And actually, according to gastrointestinal experts, travel and hybrid working schedules can lead to irregularity. So potentially that, along with the aging population in America, the lingering physical and psychological effects of the pandemic, and a general lack of fiber consumption has caused more Americans to turn to laxatives. In fact, according to the analytics company Pattern, Amazon searches for laxative pills have tripled in the last year, with the head of the Gastroenterology Associates of New Jersey saying, "It's crazy to think that our collective bowel dysfunction problems have gotten so bad that we're literally running out of stool softeners." And actually, part of the reason for these shortages is a combination of misconceptions. First, and this was actually news to me, you do not need to poop every single day, once a day, in order to be healthy. According to Mayo Clinic gastroenterology professor Dr. Brian Lacey, anywhere between 3 poops a week to 3 poops a day is actually healthy and normal. And you don't need to immediately turn to laxatives if you're feeling constipated, with Dr. Lacey recommending adding more natural fiber from fresh fruit, vegetables, and whole grains. But also, don't expect to be immediately running to the bathroom because you ate a kiwi, because it can typically take a few days to see the effect of natural fiber. But unfortunately, it's also not just constipation that's turned people to laxatives, right? Because you've got influencers and a new rise of TikTokers who have been touting them as a weight loss solution. And so we've been seeing more and more teens abusing them. And in fact, this is such a big issue, I'm gonna stop gatekeeping something real quick. And you know I'm serious about it because I'm about to show something and I'm not getting paid for it. Well, you should definitely try to incorporate more fruit and veg into your diet, because just statistically, Americans suck at consuming fiber. I was the same way 2 years ago. There are a lot of ways to get it into your diet, but as a pasta-loving Italian, I have turned to Banza pasta. It sounds stupid. It is chickpea pasta. They make it in all different forms. There's 4 servings per box. Each serving is 18% of your daily recommended fiber. And honestly, y'all remember what I used to look like. A huge part of that, what I credit, is actually consuming the right amount of fiber in a day. And then this part may just be more of a personal thing. I personally found that when I was able to like take control of the way that I was eating and do it in like a proper healthy way, it affected every aspect of my life. And I think that's because I realized like how you do something is how you do most things. And like think about it, 3 times a day, every day I eat. That's the number one habit I have. All things follow that. But hopefully this little bit at the end was helpful and or maybe insightful and not just, you know, fucking annoying like 98% of conversations around food and diet are. And then the American Red Cross just declared a national blood shortage, with the organization, which provides around 40% of Americans' blood donations, saying in an announcement this morning that its supply has fallen to critically low levels. I mean, we're talking about dropping nearly 25% since just early August. And they say this shortage could threaten the medical care of patients with an emergency need for blood or people with critical conditions who depend on life-saving blood transfusions. And very notably here, as far as what is causing this, Red Cross specifically said this was driven in part by back-to-back months of worsening climate-driven disasters, and specifically noting that Hurricane Idalia caused more than 700 units of blood and platelets to go uncollected, which is also why they said they're currently tracking Hurricane Lee and its potential impacts on the Northeast, with a warning that if the storm ends up threatening the area, it could further hamstring the organization's ability to collect life-saving blood products during that critical time. But then beyond that, the Red Cross said these climate-related shortfalls are made even worse by low blood donor turnout last month, stemming from one of the busiest travel seasons on record and back-to-school activities. We're talking about a 30,000 donation shortfall just in August. And while Red Cross officials noted that this time of year can be usually challenging, they also noted that it's part of a broader trend of declining donors, with blood donation in general having been more difficult since the pandemic. Where more people are working from home, meaning there are fewer office-based blood drives. Also, when you have issues with school staff shortages, that causes there to be less donation programs at schools. And this is a new concerning problem because, I mean, the Red Cross declared its first ever blood crisis back in January of 2022. And while this one, at least so far, is not as bad as that one, the fact that we're looking at back-to-back shortages and the things that may be triggering them are getting even worse, that's not a great sign. And so if you can donate blood, please consider doing so. I mean, the Red Cross says that all blood types are urgently needed, but also they're noting there is an emergency need for platelet donors and type O blood donors. So yeah, go out there, save a life. It doesn't take that much time, and you get to feel superior to the people around you. Who doesn't want that? And then, travel's in full swing, and who doesn't want to find the best deals out there? And well, did you know that when you're looking for the best rates on flights, hotel rooms, rental cars, all that stuff, companies may actually be increasing prices for returning website visitors, hoping that you'll make a purchase purchase out of fear as you see the prices rising. Right? And there are things like hotels and airlines can offer cheaper tickets to people in their home country. Alternatively, prices spike when interest suddenly increases. But with that, the sponsor of today's show, NordVPN, or more directly, nordvpn.com/Phil, can help. Because Nord encrypts your network, allowing you to route through one of many servers around the globe. Right? We think of VPNs as additional privacy and security layers, but also consider using them to save on your travel. You simply connect to another region or a country server and see what's available and how